What's up, everybody? Today I'm gonna show you how to put OpenWRT on your router and spoof it so your phone won't tell your carrier that you are using hotspot data. So first things first, we're gonna want a router that is compatible with OpenWRT. You can look this up by finding the model number of our router, which sometimes on the box, sometimes on the bottom of the router, or in the paperwork as you see model MR8300. So first things first. So first of all, I'm gonna start off with downloading the Linksys official firmware, just in case I have any errors down the line. I will use that to recover back to the original firmware, but usually that's not necessary. It's just I'm going to be disconnecting the internet later, so I might as well download everything. Now I'm at firmware selector openwrt.org, firmware-selector.openwrt.org. Here you look up your model. We need version 21 instead of 22, just because that's how you can set up IP tables. They change it to NPT tables in version 22, and I do not know how to set that up. So if you want to do the spoofing aspect where your carrier won't know you're doing hotspot, you need to do IP tables. So we'll use version 21 for this example. Here I was getting the gateway address through ipconfig. Open in command prompt, type in ipconfig, it'll give you a lot of network information. There I got the gateway, default gateway, and that's basically the address you got to type into the web browser to log into your router. So right here, there's a jump cut, but I reset the password because I forgot the password on the router, but that's not a problem. Here I was struggling for a little bit with this page, because usually it shows everything, but this stupid Linksys router, this one's specifically very stupid. You gotta scroll down and hit the CA at the bottom. Like I read that in the guide, but like you see right there, I'm clicking CA and voila, look at that. All those extra options pop up. Just give it a second. Look at that, all those extra updates. And most importantly, there's the manual file flash. So here, I'm gonna select the OpenWRT, and we want the factory image. I forgot to mention earlier, but we only downloading the factory image. We don't want the minimum shit. We want the full image, so that way we have less to set up down the line. But as you see here, I am flashing the firmware itself. This will take a little bit. Enjoy the sped up time lapse or whatever it's gonna be. I'm gonna try to do less cuts in this video so you guys can actually kind of see exactly what's going on. It's gonna be a longer video because of that, but hey, so be it. So as you see, I just sped it up here. Boom. Now I'm running that ipconfig command again after it installed the firmware, because as you see, my gateway address changed. So I'm logging into the new gateway address, which is 192.168.1.1, 192.168.1.1. Here, since it doesn't have a certificate, signed certificate, you're gonna scroll down, click accept the risk and continue. Then here is no password yet because we just installed it. You can just click login. But first thing we want to do for that reason is go to administrator and set up a password. This is not the Wi-Fi password, by the way. This is the password to log into your management for your router. Basically what we're doing right now. Or this page where we can, change Wi-Fi passwords, set up interfaces like we're going to right now. So network interfaces. Here, first things first, I set up the WAN DNS address just so I can actually get a connection to the internet in the time being, because we do need an internet connection to install all of the packages that we're gonna need, because the OpenWRT doesn't come with all those packages pre-installed, but they do have those packages in like the package manager, which I'll show here in a little bit. So here I'm just adding Cloudflare and Google DNS addresses. Pretty typical shit. Save and apply, and that's gonna make it so I can actually, have a DNS server so I can actually go on google.com or whatever. It's not just gonna error out. Usually here, another thing I like to do, you don't have to, I delete anything to do with IPv6, just because it's simpler with the IP tables, and then you're not gonna have any devices where they're going to use IPv6 and then your IP tables command doesn't work. I'm sure there's a way to avoid that whole issue by just setting up an IP tables rule for DHCP6, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go the simple way and disable it altogether. What you see me doing here is disabling all of that, anything IPv6 related. Come back here later and change some more settings, but I'm just basically getting IPv6 completely disabled in all of the interfaces, and I'm completely deleting WAN6 because that's unnecessary for me. And probably for you, but like I said, you do you. If you want it to work 100%, kind of like it works for me, just copy it one for one. If you don't really understand, all of this. But if you do understand what you're doing, of course, feel free to do what you're doing. But if you knew command line and, knew how to do this shit, you probably wouldn't be watching my video. But either way, I'm glad you're here. So now, we're gonna go to install those packages that I was talking about. We go system and then software. And there we're gonna have to update the lists. It's gonna take a second. As you see, that all worked without errors. That's because we set up the DNS addresses. Signature check passed. Lovely. This will fill in the package list. And from here, we are going to need this complete list of software. All of these, they're spread out with a comma. You're gonna need every single one of them. There is a way, if you know how to use command line, you can write this all as one line and download them all at once. I'm gonna show you the easy way to do it, because if you're watching this video, you probably aren't that good at command line. Let's be real. Otherwise, you would know this stuff without my help. And then here, I'm gonna have the list in the description of all the packages you need to install for this. But you're just gonna see me here quickly installing basically all of what's necessary. Like I said, it'll be a list. There will also be a PDF file that's like a little guide file. It'll have everything in one place, all the commands written out, all the packages you need to install. Like you see here, it's just one at a time. There's a way to do this in command line, but if you knew how to do that, you probably wouldn't be watching my video. Again, I'm gonna have to say that, but it is true. So once we're done with all this software, we are gonna need to SSH into the router. I use PuTTY. You can use FileZilla, whatever you prefer, but I use PuTTY. It's simple, it's quick, it's light. But here we're just gonna type in, you know, the gateway, default gateway address that we got from the ipconfig command. Also the router that you're in the web browser. So I meant the address that you're in the web browser, 192.168.1.1 in my case. Login username is root, and the password is the password you set for the administrator account. Then in here we just need to run a couple commands. Make sure you type them in correctly. As you see, I messed up twice, but it's not a big deal because I fixed it at the end. And then this will also be in the guide, so you can just copy paste. With SSH, you can just, if you have something in your clipboard copied, you can just click your right button, your right mouse clicker, and then it'll just paste it all. You'll see me using that later on. That way you don't have to use Control-V, Control-C, you know, you can just copy the text, you know, Control-C, and then once you're in the terminal, you just right click. Here I'm also doing a reboot after these commands, just to get things up and running, at least at a certain point, or up to a certain point, because we're not quite done yet. There's still a few things to do. Give it a second, it's thinking. Oh, it's restarting, not thinking, but yeah. That we're back, log in. This guy, and we're gonna unplug the router itself from the internet. No more internet for the router. That was connected to the WAN port, by the way, so we can disconnect that all together, and that's just to connect my laptop. Here selecting USB as the device, and for the device to show up, you already have to connect your phone. After the restart, you gotta already connect your phone and set up your phone to be USB tethering. Otherwise, the device won't show up. So make sure it's plugged in before you try to add the new interface. Name it whatever you want. I'm naming it USB tethering just because that's what it is. Protocol DHCP client, that's perfectly fine. Create interface. And then in here, make sure bring up on boot is selected, which it should be automatically. No need to set up anything in the DHCP server settings, but you do need to go in the firewall settings and put it in the same firewall zone as WAN, or in color red. Then here, I'm also disabling everything IPv6. Later on, I'll come here and set a custom DNS address for all of them, but I'm gonna do that later after I confirmed everything works already. So here, I guess I'm just having a brain fart, thinking of what to do next. Yeah. Click save on that. Save and apply. Always click the save and apply. Just because you did something doesn't mean it applied. So then there, as you see, there's already packets coming through on the RX, TX, RX being receiving and TX being transmitted. It's already sending packets back and forth. Now here I'm going to firewall. In general settings, scroll down, make sure the WAN zone has masquerading enabled, or that little box checked. And then we're gonna scroll up a little bit that should also be by default masquerading. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit, go to custom rules, and then we're gonna make a new line, and in that line we're gonna type in the IP tables command. That will also be in the description and in the guide, so no need to worry about typing in the correct thing. You could just copy and paste it, make your life easier. I typed it in here, and as you see, I'm a really slow typer, so that doesn't help either one of us. But like you see, it's IP tables, IP tables dash T mangle dash capital I, everything in capital, post routing dash O, USB 0, dash J, capital TTL dash dash TTL dash SET65. That's basically gonna change the time to live for the packets to 64 in the end. I don't know why, but don't ask me, I'm not a genius on this. But you gotta set it a number higher than what you're trying to achieve. I think it's because of the hop to the device itself, so that that's why you put 65, and then it accounts for the additional hop, which is from the device to the router, so that makes it 64 afterwards. Then I don't know, that's at least what I've got from Google. Maybe I'm wrong, probably wrong, but either way, we need to set that to the TTL to 64 at the end of it, because that's what helps spoof it on most carriers. Most carriers, that's how they see that you are using Hotspot, is when you connect to a computer, typically on like Windows, the TTL by default is 128, and on Android it's typically 64. So that's how your phone can easily tell that you are hotspotting. But by doing that trick, by adding that command in the firewall, that's going to basically spoof that aspect of it. And then now we're basically logging back into the router after another reboot, after we did the last thing, and here we're applying a fix for the USB port. So in cases that sometimes the USB turns off, this is just a fix I always put on regardless whether it works flawlessly or not, because it's just a good safety net or whatever, I guess. Instead of having to restart your router in case there is a problem, it'll kind of like automatically reset that port and be like, hey, that port's not been working for like 5 tests, let's try stopping it and starting it again. That's basically what that whole command is that we're gonna put in later. It's kind of like a script we're adding. So yeah, and I forgot we need an extra software for that hub control, CTRL spelled. And we're gonna install that real quick. And then we're gonna need to SSH back into the router once we got hub control installed. And we're gonna have to paste a long ass box. But like you see here, here's where I'm copying, and then I'm just gonna right click to paste the command. In the putty window that you're about to see, I'm about to connect to it right now. Log in as root again, same password you set up originally. And here, just right click, paste all that, enter. Once you're there, copy this whole chunk and copy it off the page so it actually gets proper formatting. Basically it has the tabs placed in where the tabs need to be placed. And just click enter here, and then reboot again. Trust me, this is almost the final reboot. There's gonna be one more after this one, but we're almost there. Fingers crossed it's gonna work. Well, I know it's gonna work. It's the second router I've done this to, but Let's hope it works for you. And of course, if you have any questions, concerns, you know, if something's not working out as expected, feel free to comment. Whenever I have free time, I'll definitely try to help you out. So here I'm going back into the interfaces and actually setting up DNS for everything, LAN and my tethering USB ports. That's another thing that helps with websites in general, because some websites, I don't know what it is, maybe it's because the default DNS is like from the phone carrier that it tries to use, and maybe that blocks certain websites or just has incompatibilities. But either way, when you use these custom DNS servers, it just works like, you know, a normal home setup would. Plus these DNS servers are pretty known, pretty big. Cloudflare and Google. That's the biggest DNS servers, and probably the two fastest ones as well. So just like in general, it'll be web pages loading faster, or potentially faster if your old DNS address was asked. Like you see here, I just changed DNS. I don't know why. Paranoia check, I guess I'm checking it twice. Then USB tethering. And I just had an error, and that's because at this point I'm using Wi-Fi to connect to it. But I'll go later into how to set up the Wi-Fi aspect of OpenWRT. But like you see here on the WAN ones, you have to do an extra thing, which is the use DNS servers advised by peers. You gotta uncheck that for the custom DNS box to pop up. That's same thing on WAN, but on LAN you don't have to do that. But yeah, just change the DNS on all three interfaces. On all three interfaces, and hey, you'll be just fine. So that's one thing. Just a little more. Just a little more, guys. Just a little more patience. We're almost there. Of course, we need to save and apply. Reboot real quick. And again, sorry for all the like wait times and stuff happening. I'm new to making videos and editing videos, so like I'm doing my best. Don't hit too much, please. Plus I'm trying to keep in most of the content so you can actually kind of see what's going on. And it's not like most videos where it's like, man, you cut out half the thing I need to see to know what's going on. But maybe I'm just retarded and can't understand. But yeah. And one thing I noticed, at least with both my Linksys routers, for some reason the first AC channel or antenna or whatever it is, because there's two like bands of 5 gigahertz. The first one never works on neither two of my routers that I did this on. The radio 0 for some reason just doesn't work. But here basically we just go edit. I turn up the power all the way just so I can get better wireless strength, or the best wireless strength I can get from my router, I should say. because it's not going to be any better than it was before, probably. In some cases it could be, but usually this is like what you can do maximum, and that's usually what the system originally would have done. Then here I'm just setting ESSID, that's going to be your Wi-Fi name. You know how you like, when you go to connect to Wi-Fi, it has your name, that's basically that. Here under wireless security, I'm doing WPA2 PSK instead of the WPA2/3, because with the 2/3, I noticed some older devices of mine have issues connecting to it for whatever reason, so I just set it up to WPA2 PSK and called it good enough. And under key, that's where you type in the Wi-Fi password. So since we have 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, I'm gonna have to set up two networks, or not two networks, two wirelesses, two SSIDs, sorry. And like you see there, I'm just gonna edit them. And on 2.4 gigahertz, I usually don't mention anything, like what kind of band it is. It's usually only the 5 gigahertz. I actually put it in the name that it's 5 gigahertz, because that way I know it's gonna be the wireless network that's gonna have shorter range but faster speeds potentially. Well, it depends at what range. At certain ranges you might be getting worse speeds than you could have been getting with 2.4 gigahertz. But I mean, you can do your own testing for that. And like you see here, I'm gonna save and apply, and then the radio 0 just doesn't turn on. And so I go ahead and fix it and put the 5 gigahertz on the radio 2. Like you see, I'm gonna enable it. Oh, I guess I didn't do that quite yet. This is where I find out that the first one doesn't work. Like for some reason it gave me the wireless is not associated error. I don't know, I wasn't gonna look into it. Like I said, I had this problem with my other Linksys router when I was setting this up, so I was just like, whatever, I'm gonna enable the second 5 gigahertz option, and that's gonna work just fine. Like you see, everything is literally the same as I'm gonna set up the second one. All the settings and stuff, nothing's changed, nothing's done different. I'm just double checking here, like, you know, maybe there's something I can change, but like you see there, I'm just gonna disable it and set up radio 2 to be my 5 gigahertz. And like you see, 802.11 AC, it said, that's 5 gigahertz, and 802.11 AC is 5 gigahertz, and 802.11 NBG is usually 2.4 gigahertz. So it's like an easy way to know by the 802.11, you know, the type of letters it has at the end is basically the type of wireless it does, or what kind of standard of wireless it does. Like you see there, NAC, and then I have BGN. So yeah, the BGN is the 2.4 gigahertz, and then the NAC is the 5 gigahertz. And I go to enable that, and then voila, look at that, it just works. And here's me obviously connecting to it. And voila, I hope y'all have a good day. I hope y'all enjoy. With all those edits, I was able to use in 1 month. Let's show you. 100 gigabytes, and I did not run out of hotspot data.